Hey everyone, today we're going to take a look at the Marvel Legends Mr. Knight action figure from the Disney Plus Moon Knight TV series. Please like, share, comment, subscribe, or even hit that super thanks button. I appreciate all engagement. So let's have a quick look at the box now. On top, we have that crescent moon logo. Down to the bottom, some product information. On the sides, that's artwork of Mr. Knight. And down to the back, we have Mr. Knight waving his batons. There's a description of Mr. Knight's character on the right, the rest of the figures of the wave over here, as well as more product information at the bottom. On that last side of the box, we have that same reflected artwork of Mr. Knight. So let's go ahead and get this box open. Out of the packaging, the figure is sitting on the plastic tray. He comes with 2 batons, 2 gripping hands, as well as the Infinity Ultron Build-A-Figure right arm. The 2 gripping hands are cast in a white plastic, and they do look like a brand new sculpt. They have sculpted details like wrinkles on the back of the hands, and that makes them look like they have a gloved texture. These 2 hands are articulated downwards, as well as upwards. The 2 batons are cast in a metallic grey plastic, with gold paint at both ends. Both batons have a sort of ancient inscription on the 2 sides of each baton, and the inscriptions look to be different on each one of them. That is a very cool touch and a nice bit of extra detail on a Marvel Legends figure. Popping on those gloved gripping hands onto the figure, he can of course hold those 2 batons pretty well. And I do like how the metallic plastic and the gold paint contrasts against most of the white on the figure. Looking at the sculpt of the figure, the new parts are of course his head sculpt, his jacket and vest overlay, his legs, as well as his shoes. The torso inside of the jacket plus those arms are actually reused from the usual skinny Marvel Legends suited body. And that means that those arms do appear to be a little too skinny when you compare it to the sculpt and the size of his legs. At the same time, those legs have that pinless knees. So that looks really nice and cohesive. However, you can still see those pins on the sides of his elbows, so that is a bit distracting. It's also subtle, but the figure also has different tones of white plastic. The true white parts are his feet, his hands, as well as the inner shirt and his tie, while his head, his jacket overlay, his sleeves, as well as his pant legs are all a slightly yellower off-white. So the different tones of white actually makes this figure look more interesting. The head sculpt is simple but quite well executed. His head sculpt is simple but very well executed. It looks believably like a guy beneath a mask that's pulled really tight over his head. You can see the facial features like those eyebrows, his nose, as well as his ears down the side of the mask. The mask also has some stitching detail running from the right side of his cheek all the way up to the top, with a crescent moon logo on his forehead, and that stitching continues all the way to the top of his head, down to the back of the head as well. However, the paint detail is only visible on the front of the head, coloring the stitching from the right side of his cheek, and that ends somewhere just above the crescent on his forehead. It's a bit of a bummer. I really wish that the paint could have gone all the way back with the stitching to the back of his head. There's also some sharp digital dot matrix printing for the blues in his eyes, and you can also see the whites of his irises, which is really nice small bit of detail. On his torso, there's a lot of intricate sculpting for the fancy design of that jacket, his tie, as well as the front of his vest. The vest and the jacket are sculpted as one piece, and there's also silver paint for the 6 buttons down the front. He's also got sculpting detail for pockets on the jacket, as well as some pocket squares over here on the left side of his chest. The rest of the jacket on the back has got a couple of wrinkles sculpted. The sleeves are more of the same that we've seen on the skinny suited Marvel Legends body, but this time there's some silver paint for the buttons over here just at the bottom of the sleeve. Moving on to his legs, these are newly sculpted with the pinless knees. There's a seam sculpted down the side of this pant leg, and there are also some wrinkles in the fabric. For his feet, these are sculpted with bands across his feet, and there's also a little bit of a chunky sole. For articulation, his head is on a ball hinge, so you get to spin it 360. There's just that little bit of sideways tilting, quite good range looking down, as well as up. Swivel hinge at the shoulders that go 360, as well as coming out quite a good bit. Bicep swivel for 360 spin, double jointed pinned elbows, so that's good range, he can touch his shoulders. Swivel hinge at the wrist for 360 spin, as well as articulating in and out. As with the Marvel Legends suited body, he does have a hinge at the middle of his torso, but that's quite hindered by that coat, so you do get just that little bit of forward bend and some backward range, mostly hindered by the jacket again. There's a swivel at his waist, so he spins 360, ball joint at the hips, and that goes out quite a fair bit. And there's some good range forward and backward as well. Swivel at the thighs, so that's 360 spin, and it feels detented. Double jointed pinless knees that feel quite stiff, but there's still quite a good bit of range. There's a calf swivel that's disguised at the bottom of his pant leg, so you can spin his foot all the way 360. He has an ankle hinge, and that gives you upward tilt, downward tilt, as well as some sideways ankle pivot. Despite his skinny arms and that ab crunch being hindered by the sculpt of his vest and jacket, the figure actually poses quite well. But I do also wish that Hasbro would have provided us with some relaxed hands for more display options. And speaking of relaxed hands, I found that the hands from the Mr. Fantastic figure do scale well with this figure, and they look kind of relaxed, or you can even use them to hold on to other weapons as well. The Mr. Knight head also swaps perfectly onto the comic Moon Knight action figure, so it's of course an option if you ever wanted to pose him with his hood down. Mr. Knight stands at just under 6¼ inches, and that's about 15.5 centimeters. For size comparisons, I think he scales well with the cinematic as well as comic versions of Moon Knight. Here he is with a couple of other figures in this wave, and here he is with a couple of comic style Marvel Legends. Here he is with some G.I. Joe Classified series, and some Star Wars Black series. I quite enjoy this Mr. Knight figure. Despite his skinny arms and minimal paintwork, the articulation feels smooth, and there's quite some nice detail on his sculpt. If he came with an unmasked Oscar Isaac head and some more interchangeable hands, these would firmly be the best of this wave. Please like and share this video, let me know what you think in the comments below, subscribe to my channel, or even hit that super thanks button. Thanks for watching, take care and stay safe.